human beings have consciousness? What is dark matter made of? Does intelligent life exist elsewhere in the universe? Do Pikmin poop? These are the biggest questions scientists are asking, the great mysteries that remain unanswered to this day. But really, Pikmin is a series that encourages curiosity and exploration of the unknown, proving that even small things are worth examining and can hold more wonder and learning opportunities than you would ever expect. And I think that parallels this channel pretty well. So today, I want to take a closer look at the series and see if I can't solve the mystery of whether or not Pikmin make bowel movements. But to fully do this right, I needed to call on someone who really knew their stuff about the series. So joining me today is resident Pikmin expert, Schaffrillas Productions.
Hey everyone, it's me, Schaffrillas, the resident Pikmin professor. I studied Pikmin lore in college and earned my doctorate in Pikology. 100%.
Such an honor to have you, Doctor. I'm really glad you're here to help, because I feel like there have been so many videos already made on Pikmin trying to figure them out, but there's always been so many question marks too. And then Pikmin 4's extensive additions to the Piklopedia came along and shook everything up. But let's start at square one. Tell me about these little dudes.
For those who might not be familiar to the series, Pikmin are these little creatures originally discovered on the planet PNF 404 by Captain Olimar, who named them Pikmin due to their resemblance to Pick carrots from his home planet. Pikmin are produced by vessels called onions, and can be plucked from the ground where they will then follow the commands of the one who uprooted them. While individually they're pretty vulnerable and weak, they're much stronger as a team, and work together much like ants do to swarm enemies, break down barriers, carry things back to the onion, and more. There are a bunch of different types that all have different things they specialize in, and do you want to get into that?
Nah, not right now. A+ introduction though. I think the key to solving the mystery as to whether or not these little weirdos poop is to first figure out what they are. At least a basic biological category would help. Now obviously I think one of the first things people notice when they look at them is the leaf or flower on their heads. And like you said, they spring out of the onion and are planted almost like seeds, so there's clearly a plant-like aspect to this.
Absolutely. In the Piklopedia, they're even classified as ambuloradices, which is Latin for ambulatory roots. So roots that can walk around, basically. Looking at Olimar's notes, there are a ton of terms that are indicative of plant genealogy as well. They evolved from terrestrial root vegetables. The red one's skin and muscle fibers are made up of flame-resistant cellulose. They breathe through the stomata on their skin.
Why do the red ones have noses?
What?
Why do the red ones have noses if they breathe through their skin?
Well, they aren't actually noses.
Oh, noses?
Why did I agree to be a part of this? But really, none of the human-esque head features that Pikmin display are actually functional for their apparent purposes. According to Olimar's notes, they aren't noses, they're nose-like protuberances. They're not ears, they're ear-like lamellae. They're not mouths, they're gills resembling mouths.
Well, shoot. Fair enough. Alright, so let me take everyone back to the dark, shadowy place that was 8th grade biology class and break down what the terms in these notes mean exactly. So first, Olimar says that the red one's skin and muscle fibers are made up of a flame-resistant cellulose. And cellulose is the main structural component of plant cell walls and basically allows the plant to stay rigid and upright. Gives it its structure, basically. As we covered, he talks about Pikmin breathing through stomata on their skin, and stomata are basically the pores of plants. Tiny microscopic openings in the leaves and stem that allow plants to exchange gases with the environment. During the day, opening and intaking carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen, and at night closing up to reduce water vapor escaping into the air. He also mentions the blue ones getting their color through pigment proteins on the surface of their body by performing the same basic photosynthetic process as cyanobacteria. Okay, so cyanobacteria, which you may have noticed has the word cyan in it, is a greenish-bluish bacteria. The greenish comes from chlorophyll, which helps plants absorb energy from the sun. But in cyanobacteria, it's assisted by phycocyanin, which is a pigment protein complex that increases the efficiency of chlorophyll's oxygen production under low light conditions, like, say, underwater. The phycocyanin, which also has the word cyan in it, appears blue because it absorbs red and orange light and reflects blue light. And its extract is used in some skincare products, giving them their blue pigment, and it can also be used in food as well. In fact, if you've heard of spirulina, that's cyanobacteria, and blue spirulina is specifically the phycocyanin that has been extracted from it. So basically what Olimar is insinuating is that blue Pikmin are blue because it uses phycocyanin in its photosynthetic process. And he talks more about plant pigmentation in his notes on purple Pikmin, where he says their rich purple color is derived from strong polyphenol antioxidants. Now this is actually really interesting, so let's go big to small here. There are different types of antioxidants, and flavonoids are one of them. Flavonoids not only contribute to pigmentation, but are also involved in UV filtration in plants, reducing oxidative stress from sun exposure by absorbing UV light, which would be particularly helpful helpful in, say, Pikmin that are born underground and therefore are unaccustomed to sun exposure. Back to the coloring though, the type of flavonoids that Olimar is almost certainly alluding to are anthocyanins. Anthocyanin is a pigment that is really good at absorbing green light, but not so much absorbing red, blue, and purple light, which is why the fruits and plants that contain a good amount of it are that color. For example, acai berries, red cabbage, or perhaps most appropriately, purple carrots.
Ah, I see what you did there.
Thanks. Finally, for the white Pikmin, he talks about a type of diterpene alkaloid, but he kind of spells that all out himself. Aconite, also known as wolfsbane, monkshood, and a bunch of other stuff, is a real-life genus of flowering plant, most of which are extremely poisonous and cause all those fun little side effects, including death. All this to say, Pikmin aren't plants.
That's an insane 180. You just spent the last 3 minutes talking about how they're like plants.
And yet they aren't plants.
I mean, I agree that they're not strictly plants, but you think they're definitely animals?
Talk to me about Olimar's notes on yellow Pikmin.
Sure, he says that it's generally believed that the Pikmin body evolved from the root of a plant, developing structures analogous to muscles and neural networks similar to those of a brain. They have a perfect resistance to electricity, and their flowers even bloom when they're exposed to electric current, indicating that their neural transmission methods are quite different from our own.
See, neural networks, neural transmission methods, there's the rub. Plants don't have brains or neurons or nervous systems. Animals do. And there's something else that backs Pikmin having nervous systems, and it's in this moment from an official Pikmin short put out by Nintendo of America. Did you catch it?
The Pikmin sweats?
Not just sweats, nervously sweats. There are two main types of sweat glands, eccrine and apocrine. Sweat intended to cool your body down when you're running too hot comes from the eccrine glands, but emotional sweat, like when you're under duress, comes from the apocrine glands. More specifically, the central nervous system releases neurotransmitters into the autonomous nervous system, which activates the apocrine sweat glands and makes you start sweating. This Pikmin is clearly sweating because they are under duress. Secondly, the different types of Pikmin all have scientific names in the Piklopedia, right?
Yep, they all start with Pikminidae as the genus, then the species name varies by type, and they all have Latin roots. So the red ones are Pikminidae rubris, rubrum meaning red in Latin. The yellow are Pikminidae arabis, arabis meaning ears. The blue are Pikminidae cerula, cerula meaning blue. Purple are Pikminidae yokozunum, yokozunum meaning yokozuma, which is the highest rank in sumo wrestling. White are Pikminidae venalbius, a combination of venom, poison, and albus, white. Rock are Pikminidae habisaxum, habitare meaning to inhabit, and saxum meaning rock. Wings Pikmin are Pikminidae volarosa, volare meaning to fly, and rosa meaning rose. Ice are Pikminidae habiglacius. Like the rock Pikmin, habitare is to inhabit, and glacies means ice. And then glow Pikmin are Pikminidae supravelum, supra meaning above, and velum meaning veil, which alludes to them possibly being spirits, or beyond the veil, as the saying goes.
So they clearly put a lot of thought into these names, right? Just like they put a ton of thought into making Olimar's notes contain actual scientific explanations for things.
I totally agree.
And yet, they kind of beefed it in a way. What family do Pikmin belong to?
The Piklopedia says the family is Pikmin.
Yeah, it sucks. Okay, so Pikmin couldn't be a scientific family name in the real world, because in botanical nomenclature, family names always end in A-C-E-A-E, AC. And in zoological nomenclature, family names always end in I-D-A-E, itty. What is an onion scientific name and family?
Name Lilium Pikminiporta. Family Candy Pop.
Right, so family names they didn't quite nail. But the species names are rough to nail down too, because genuses don't end in itty. Even in zoology, that's reserved for families. Now here's where I'll make my argument, albeit it's a loose one. There are some animals where they're most commonly referred to as their family name. Like ants are Formicidae. And while you can break that down into the over 200 genuses of ants, if you're just like, look, an ant, the scientific name is Formicidae. Now there is one instance where the itty suffix can be used in botany, but that's at the subclass level and wouldn't be used in a scientific name like this. But what I think is interesting is the dichotomy between the Pikmin scientific name and the onions. Lilium Pikminiporta is likely constructed from Lilium, spelled with one L, which is a genus of herbaceous flowering plants that grow from bulbs, Pikmini or Pikmin, and Porta, which is a gate or entrance. What about the others in the candy pop family?
Flarlic is Bulbus lilium, and candy pop buds are Flora expellus.
Like, see, you have Lilium again, and flora. When you compare that to the Pikmin using the suffix -ity, which is most commonly used in zoology, it just seems to differentiate the two. But there's another huge difference between onions and Pikmin that I think reinforces that distinction, and that is that the onion produces nectar while Pikmin consume nectar. Plants make nectar, they don't consume it, animals do. Plants don't need to poop, but they do still need to get rid of excess waste. And they get rid of this excess waste in the form of oxygen, because they produce their own food via photosynthesis. But animals, because they consume outside food, need to get rid of that waste via a different method. So while Pikmin definitely have plant traits, they also definitely have animal traits, which means that pooping is 100% on the table here. No pooping on the table, though.
No promises. Okay, well if they are animals, does that mean they definitely do poop? Do all animals poop?
Not all of them. There's some that don't poop because they don't have mouths to eat and only live long enough to reproduce anyway, like silk moths and mayflies. Or there are some that don't have digestive systems or anuses, like sponges and flatworms. Do Pikmin have anuses, Schaffrillas?
A question I never thought I'd be asked in a million years. Well, we've covered that they don't have mouths, since what looks like a mouth on blue Pikmin are actually gills, and there's no official media showing them ever having a mouth, despite what they're feeling or expressing. But it's unclear if they have anuses. They certainly never show one if they do.
Yeah, but they also wouldn't. Like, they never show, like, Yoshi's booty hole, right? Oh my god, the Google image search I'm gonna have to do for this video.
I am open to the possibility that they have...
booty holes.
Sure.
Hey, how do they consume nectar if they don't have mouths?
I assume they absorb it, like how roots absorb water.
Ah, and like carrots, their bodies are the roots. Ambulatory roots.
Exactly. So, are there any other reasons an animal wouldn't poop?
Well, adult butterflies don't poop because they... Oh.
What?
Because they only drink nectar.
Probably should have started there. Well, what do they do instead?
Well, butterflies use almost all of the liquid they consume. But if they do get too full of liquid, they'll either excrete the waste as a little drop or a fine spray from their abdomens, or as a mist when they fly. But this liquid waste is almost purely water. Like, it can't even be classified as urine because it's almost 100% water.
Whoa. So because Pikmin only consume nectar, they might just leave a water drop or a mist?
Maybe. But there's another insect with a liquid diet that I can't stop thinking about. Ants.
Ants have a liquid diet?
They do. Adult ants can't eat solid food, so when they come across food, they use their mandibles to break it apart and mix it with their saliva to create a liquid substance that they can eat. And ants actually have two stomachs, one which is used to nourish the ant itself, and another known as the ant's social stomach, because they use it to store food to bring back to the colony where they can regurgitate it into another ant's mouth to feed it, which is referred to as trophallaxis. So if an ant comes across solid food out in the world, it will first start breaking it down to fill its two stomachs.
But if they fill up on food then, why do you commonly see ants carrying solid foods back to their nest?
Ah, because the larvae need the protein that can only be found in solid food, and larvae are able to break solid food down. So the adult ants will carry their solid finds back to the nest to feed the larvae of the colony. And you know what else works together to carry things they find back to their nest?
Oh my god, and then when you bring the things back to the nest, that's when the baby Pikmin pop out!
You see in the Matrix! So what I'm saying is the adult Pikmin only eat nectar. They bring the solid food back to the onion to feed the larval form of Pikmin who reside inside the nest. And only once they're fed are they strong enough to be sent out into the world. Like ants, they could have a whole complex system inside that onion. I mean, I feel like they have to fit that many of them in there at once every night.
So, do ants poop?
They do. It's called frass, but this is also really interesting. Ants are super sanitary creatures. They're very militant about keeping their nest clean and hygienic and are quick to remove any carcasses or food waste from the nest. So you would think that they would also not want to keep frass in the nest. And yet, ants will designate an area of their nest specifically for their frass. What's more, if they're out and about outside the nest, they'll store their frass in their bodies until they get back to the nest to defecate. Scientists still aren't sure why they prefer to keep their frass in their nests when they're so against all of their waste being stored there, but best guesses include that the frass may have a nutrient or antimicrobial property that the ants are able to utilize, or that its scent might be used to mark their territory or familiarize newborns to the colony's scent. It's still unclear, but since ants are so systematic, there's clearly a reason they store it in the nest.
So it's possible Pikmin do need to poop, but if they're out and about, they'll hold it in till they get back to their onions for the night, where they do all their devious bathroom deeds.
I definitely think it's possible. And they could have full full-blown toilets in there for all I know. What's inside the onion is a total question mark.
So we've narrowed it down to either them going to the bathroom in their onions like ants, or possibly creating water droplets or mist due to their all-nectar diets.
Which they could theoretically also wait until they got back to their onion to do. There's also a third option, and that's that they intake nectar and create a byproduct that's almost purely water like butterflies, but then have some sort of internal system that doesn't exist in the real world where they can take that byproduct and use it to, like, hydrate themselves.
Ah, like watering themselves from the inside.
Yeah. Can I be honest though? That's kind of boring. I like imagining they go potty in their onions at the end of the day, be it water droplets or frass.
I think that's the more interesting option too.
Also, the Pikmin that take over the Bulborbs?
Oh, you mean the greatest Pikmin type to ever exist that Nintendo abandoned entirely? Bulbmin?
Sure. Do they eat something besides nectar?
Yeah. Olimar notes that the Bulborb's voracious appetites seem impossible for the Bulbmin to suppress, so they'll eat Pikmin.
Then Bulbmin definitely poop. Or at least the hosting body does.
Glad we worked that out.
Do you think glow Pikmin poop?
Well, I think to answer that, we have to ask ourselves, do ghosts poop? And, no, I don't think so. Glow Pikmin are weird. Not to mention, they were discovered after I already graduated with my doctorate in Pikology, so they were not taught to me in school.
Schaffrillas, thanks for working out of Pikmin poop with me.
No prob. It was, quite the journey, I guess.
And viewers, if you haven't already, be sure to check out Schaffrillas' channel. They make amazing videos about pretty much everything. Every show, game, and movie you can imagine. And they were the ones that made the Which Smash Bros. Characters have canonically eaten pizza video that inspired me to make my own Which Smash Bros. Videos. Show them all the love you got, subscribe to us both, and now I've gotta go scrub my Google image search history. Honestly, with the images of Yoshi that I witnessed, I should probably disinfect my phone and sage the room while I'm at it. See y'all in the next one.
Goombanna is the wonder why she didn't come to play. Gaming vids that'll make you laugh and think and put them on replay. Intelligent, kind of funny, her community's #1. Stick around and kick your feet up. Goombanna has just begun.